Saratoga High School, and yeah, I'm a co-founder of the initiative.
I'm Rory. I'm actually an 8th grader at the Harker Middle School, where some of you guys will be going in the next 1 to 2 years. And I'm also competed in lots of bee research, and I'm super passionate about bees and really excited to talk with you guys.
Right. My name is Andrew. I'm an 11th grader at Harker. How many of you here have Eagle Buddies? All of them? Alright. Well, my Eagle Buddy is in here today, so it's kind of nice meeting him. Shout out to Ayan.
Oh, nice.
Right, so yeah, I've been doing beekeeping since about 10th grade. I really love bees as well. I think they're super cool, and beekeeping has just been such a cool and integral part of my life these past 2 years. So I'm hoping that all of you can learn something about beekeeping today, and at least just be more wary of the
just gonna do its thing.
More wary of the challenges that they're facing. So yeah.
So how many of you guys like honey? Raise your hand.
I like honey too.
How many of you guys have been stung by a bee? It hurts a lot, right? Yeah. So bees are an integral part of all of our lives, and whether or not you know it or not, we have to deal with them. So they are very important, so we are going to be presenting about them today. So first off, what are bees? So what we typically classify as the bees, well, first off, there are a bunch of different species of bees, but primarily what we're going to talk about are honeybees, which are the bees that you are probably familiar with. They're the ones that produce honey, as the name suggests. So within honeybees, there are 3 main types of bees. So does anyone want to guess the first type? One of them?
Queen?
Yeah, so there's going to be a queen bee, right? And there's only going to be 1 queen in the entire hive. And then there's also 2 more types. Does anyone know?
Worker bee?
Yeah, so the worker bee is one of them. And what is the third type?
The drone bee?
Yeah, so the drone bee. So the primary difference of the worker, the queen, and the drone is their purpose. So there's going to be only 1 queen in the colony, and they have 1 purpose, as you guys probably know, it's to reproduce. And the thing is, all they do is reproduce, and they can release pheromones, which are just like smells, that basically regulate how the colony acts. So if the queen is particularly aggressive, like the hive will act really aggressively. If the queen is really passive, the hive will also be passive. So the queen can dictate how the hive acts. But at the same time, the hive will also can influence the queen, because if the hive thinks the queen is weak, they will simply kill it and replace it. So it's very cutthroat. So people like to think that the queen rules the hive, but actually in some way the worker bee actually controls the queen, because if they don't like the queen dies, right? They just kill it. So, as you guys can tell, the worker bees are the most important part of the hive, basically. They make up around 80% of the hive, and they're all females. And basically, if you see any bees out there, they're all worker bees. They do everything. They pollinate, they do all the pollination, they create honey, they take care of the young that the queen lives. And what they do is that they do whatever, I can't pronounce that word. But basically what it means is that depending on how old a bee is, it's going to do a different job. So basically, the younger ones, right when they're born, they're going to do a lot of the internal hive stuff, and then when they're slightly older, slightly more mature, they're going to go fly out. They're going to go do a lot of the pollination, and then once at the end of their life, when they're like all tired and stuff, they stay back at the hive and do a lot of like the cleanup stuff as well, and taking care of the young inside of the hive. So basically, depending on how old a worker bee is, they're going to do different things. And they typically only live around like 1 month to 6 weeks. And then the last type is the drone. It's the only male bee, and they basically have 1 purpose, and it's just to mate with other queens. So basically, like, they don't do anything. They are literally worthless to the hive other than to go mate with other queens. So basically what this means is that, like during the winter, right? When they can't pollinate, they don't go outside, they're low on food sources, they can't go make more honey. They they're useless. They're practically useless. They do no job in the hive, so they all get kicked out of the hive during the winter, and they all will die to the coldness. So yeah, so they are literally a burden to the hive. And the easiest way to tell the difference is that the drones, they're going to be slightly bigger. They won't have any stinger, and they also you can tell it by the length of the like the abdominal and where the wings go up to. So the wings don't go all the way to the tip at the drones. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to get an observation hive, so we can't show you. So you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. Yeah. So those are the 3 types. So here's the image of a hive. Does anyone want to try to spot the queen? It's gonna be kind of hard.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Does one person want to come up and like point to it on the board? Yeah. So it's going to be circled right there. So the easiest way you can tell is that it's slightly longer, right? And there's this big black dot on its back. So usually, as you can tell, it's like much longer and that big black dot. And okay, yeah. So the queen has a stinger. Okay, here's a fun fact. So the queen can sting you multiple times, but the worker bees can only sting you once. Does anyone know why this might be true?
Worker bees will die after they sting thing.
Yeah, that is true, but does anyone know why they will die?
Because for the worker bees, I think their stingers are attached to their gut.
Yeah, so the primary thing is the shape of the stinger. So I was wondering if I could draw on the board, or is this just
yeah, there's some pens there,
okay.
so go for it.
So basically, like, this is what you would think the stinger looks like a straight spike, right? But it turns out that the worker bee stinger does not actually look like this. It's barbed. So there's going to be a bunch of tiny little, like, spikes poking out of the stinger. So if you've ever like had those like those plants, like those thorns, like get into your skin, it stays in there, it gets stuck because these barbs, they get stuck in your skin. So the reason why they do this is so it can better they can better like inject your body with poison, I think, I don't know, venom. Okay, yeah, venom. So yeah, so it's to make sure that they can inject the venom into your body. And then why do they die? It's because it's attached to all their organs. It's attached to their digestive system. So when they like try to pull it out, it's basically they're ripping out all their internal organs with them. It's very grotesque. It's very disgusting. So that's why they die. Like, imagine if all your like organs are just like ripped out of your body. Like, I would die surely. So the queen, unlike the worker bees, are able to sting you multiple times because it's not barbed. It's smooth. The stingers are smooth. And does anyone want to guess why it's smooth? What purpose does it have for them to be able to be smooth?
Maybe because the queen only has they only have one queen, so the queen needs to continue living after they sting, and the queen needs to stay safe after she tries to sting and needs to fly away safely.
Yeah, so that's definitely part of it. So the queen needs to sting multiple times. And the reason why it needs to sting multiple times is, well, obviously the queen is very important, but there's also another reason that's a lot more brutal, I think. So whenever a hive creates a new queen, they're not just going to create one. Because what if the queen is weak? What if the queen is bad? Or like, what if it's like deformed or like something? And like, they don't want that. They want what is best for the hive. So what they're going to do is they're going to make a bunch of queens. They're going to make like three queens at once, and they're going to have them compete. And they're literally going to be like a gladiator, fight to the death. Strongest queen survives. So that's why they need the stingers. They have to be able to sting each other too during the fight, so that they can figure out like what is the actual queen that like wins and becomes the new queen. So yeah, very brutal life for the worker bees. Very sad. Okay, so inside of the hive, there's going to be several different types of things you'll see. So there's primarily 3 cells in the hive, and all the cells are going to be made out of beeswax. And inside of the cells, they're going to either there might be stuff. I think all the cells in there are empty.
There's like traces of wax on like the side where everyone can see.
Yeah.
Well, we can just pass around one thing so everyone can take a look.
Yeah. So basically, they're gonna build these hexagon cells and they're gonna stuff it full of things. So either they're gonna stuff it with full of honey, or the brood, which is the larva, or they're gonna stuff it with like the queen, which is the queen. Yeah. So here is the very important thing. So people commonly get pollen and honey confused. So does anyone want to know the difference between pollen and honey?
Pollen is like a solid sort of like it's solid, but honey is sort of liquid.
Yeah, so there are different things that they extract from the plants. So the honey is made out of the they stuff it into a cell, and they fan it with their wings to evaporate all the moisture. And then that's how they make honey. And then pollen is from the actual pollen that pollinates plants. That's part of the reproductive cycle. And basically, pollen is what they use to feed the young. So pollen is a really good source of protein for them. It's a food source, and they also use pollen to create beeswax by ingesting it, and then they will like excrete beeswax from the body.
One fun fact is when making a queen, the actually only thing that differentiates a worker bee from a queen is what they feed them. And so worker bees will be fed normal pollen, and then when they hatch, they'll become a worker bee. But a queen bee will actually be fed this special thing called royal jelly. It's a very fancy thing that can supposedly make your skin very nice, kinds of things like that. But when a bee is fed royal jelly, that's what actually makes it.
Yeah. So honey, very, very difficult for the worker bees to make. I don't know the updated statistics, but I think like it was like 200,000. If you had to pay them minimum wage, like an ounce of honey would be like $200,000 or something, just from how much labor they put in. So, and it's probably even more now, adjusted with like inflation and stuff. So we should be very thankful that they are not being paid minimum wage.
Alright, so now I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why bees are so important. We've learned a bit about some of the brutal things that bees can do, such as stinging each other to the death or getting all their organs ripped out. But bees can actually be super important to the ecosystem as well. First of all is pollination. So I think you guys have all learned this, but honeybees are really essential to being able to pollinate crops and flowers. And in fact, they account for $30 billion in produce per year. So as Brian said, it's a really good thing that we aren't paying them for their labor, because then we'd all go broke. So one reason why bees are so important to the ecosystem is that, let's say you're in a garden and you have flowers, say flowers outside right there. Those flowers were probably pollinated by bees, and that's the only reason that they're surviving. So if the bees are gone, then all of the flowers go too. And that's why it's so important that we have bees in the ecosystem. However, there are some problems. Let's take a look at this diagram here. What trends do you guys notice in the diagram?
The bees decrease so like from 1946 there's like a lot of bees and 2000
Yeah, we see how it goes from almost 6 million hives to only about 3 million by the time it gets into the late 2000s and going forward. So even though most of you guys have been stung by bees or enjoy eating honey, we actually see that there has been a huge decline in the honeybee population. And so we see that due to this thing known as colony collapse disorder, that's when a lot of bees suddenly start dying off. And scientists aren't exactly sure of the many reasons that this might be happening, but we think it's due to things such as pesticides, or pests, or viruses. Do any of you guys want to brainstorm more reasons why honeybees might be dying?
In the playground, sometimes like bees are just walking on the ground and people like stomp on them.
Yeah, I think a lot of, do you want to?
Like some bees might use their way and some bees might use their way and like be killed in the water or something.
Because they're trying to
I think these are all really great reasons. All of these are true in one way or another, especially climate change is one of the super major factors that are causing honeybee declines. And you also mentioned about how bees might get lost on their ways to go search for flowers and then come back to the hive. And that's actually something that is caused by pesticides. So if we go here, here is the world of science. And so we have, science is basically using science to create solutions to problems. So we have this problem that pesticides are causing bees' learning and memory to fail, and that causes them to get lost on the way to find flowers, and so they can't get food home, and then that causes honeybee colonies to collapse. So we know that coffee and tea make humans energized, so we think, oh, maybe they can improve honeybees' learning and memory as well. So how do we test this? We use science. So on this photo here, on the very top left, your guys is right, you can see that I'm holding a honeybee frame with that. This one actually has live honeybees on it, and I'm in my bee suit. And what I did is I did a research project, and my research project is testing if my solution is effective. So basically testing, will tea and coffee really be able to improve their learning and memory? And so the way that I tested this is, if you can see on the bottom right diagram, the bee is sticking out its tongue. And a very fancy word that we use for the bee's tongue is also called the proboscis. And so the way I test learning is seeing, oh, if I give the bee something, will the bee stick out its tongue or its proboscis? And so researchers like to use fancy process names such as the proboscis effect response or other fancy things such as that. But really it's just, will the bee stick out its tongue? Is what I'm doing to do my research. And so using this, I was able to find the solution to the problem of honeybee die-offs, that in fact tea and coffee can help bees learn and memory. And now Andrew's going to talk about his research.
So I guess as a counterpart to science, there is also engineering. And so basically my definition of engineering is just trying to design some products that can be able to help with some solutions. And so I'll go into this in a bit, but right now what beekeepers kind of do to help make sure that their hives are kind of safe is that they'll just go to their hive, they're going to take out each individual frame and kind of like inspect it to check if there's anything wrong with that hive. But as you might imagine, if say there's a beekeeper with 10, 20 hives, this can easily become a really tedious process. And so that's the type of problem that I wanted to solve. In addition, I also used artificial intelligence, which I think is really cool, and I tried to use it in order to detect some signs that bees might be unhealthy. So like when beekeepers are looking at the bees inside their frame, they might look for things such as like wing deformities, right? So Rory mentioned that viruses are one of the causes of colony collapse, and there are like viruses and pests like the varroa mite, for example, that can kind of stick themselves under the wings of the bee, and then that will cause their wings kind of to become deformed, and so they can't fly as well. Additionally, like the queen not only like kind of lays all the eggs in the hive, but she also makes this really interesting sound called piping. So basically that's kind of a high-pitched sound that I think new queens make to kind of signal, to kind of shout out to the hive, hey, I'm the queen, I'm here, it's me, hello. So that's a sign that a hive is properly making queens, and so the absence of that sound kind of indicates that, maybe there isn't a queen. We might need to intervene in some ways in order to have a queen kind of be introduced to the hive in some way. And so I also developed this really cool system that allows beekeepers to kind of look at the entrance of the hive. So this photo actually is taken from my system. As you can see, this was on a really hot day, so there are tons of bees on the entrance of the hive. Well, yeah, so that's kind of how engineering can help this problem.
Wait. Okay. I just wanted to mention something.
There's a bee in there that wants to get out. I'm just telling you right now.
Does anyone actually know how Rory mentioned this? How bees are able to navigate? Does anyone know what the mechanisms they use to navigate? So what they do is they're gonna primarily use the sun's positioning. So they use the sun to tell basically where they are relative to the nest, depending on like which part of the sky it is. And that's also how they tell like what time it is and stuff. So bees they can forage very far away. They can forage like miles away. So like who knows? Maybe like one of our hives, the bees here are from one of our hives. You never know. So they are able to travel very far distances, and when it's perfectly healthy, they have a very great accuracy and location navigation skills. Yeah. And also fun fact, well, not very fun. This method that Rory mentioned about like testing the bees' memory, the military tried to use this with bees to detect explosives because their sense of smell is very good. They can smell things in the parts per trillion. So, fun fact about bees.
I guess also building off of what Brian said, another way that they can kind of like at least communicate to other bees where they found flowers is this really cool kind of thing called the waggle dance. So basically people just go bzzz, and dance in a really specific pattern, and that's somehow able to communicate to other bees where flowers are. And it's actually so complicated that as humans we don't really know how it works in its entirety, but yeah, cool stuff. Right. Now, we've kind of painted a pretty grim picture about the futures of bees, and so I mean, in the spirit of Earth Day, I think it's relevant to talk about in which ways we can kind of help the bees. Obviously, just like generally good environmental habits, like trying to recycle as much, don't litter, try to minimize the amount of water you use. I think all of those are just good general ways to help the environment. But maybe in the context of bees, one thing that you can do, perhaps, or maybe if anyone in your house gardens, is to use less pesticides. Now, Rory already mentioned how debilitating pesticides can be, and so I mean, just the less pesticides you use, the less worry that you need for bees who are doing you a pretty big favor by pollinating your flowers, can make it home safely and continue helping you. Now, I probably should say that this might occur on some like small scale in homes, but this is a really big kind of issue within like commercial farms. So like California, as you might know, really powerful agricultural state. What are some types of like fruits and vegetables that we grow here? Yes. Corn? Not what comes to mind, but definitely corn can be grown here. Almonds, yes, almonds is a very big one. In the back. Avocados, yeah. So all of these. Do you guys like avocado toast?
Sounds good. It sounds really good.
If you haven't tried it, you should.
Yeah. You have bees to thank for them, and so I think in commercial farms, I think it's really useful just to keep spreading the word, and hopefully one day we'll be able to find some more healthier alternatives to pesticides, so that farmers don't have to like spray so much. Yes, you can also plant some. Just in what you plant, you can also help bees a lot. Another thing you can do is to not exterminate bee swarms. So sometimes, like around the time of spring, actually, I have 2 hives at home. Both of my hives have swarm. So swarming is basically just when like this is basically how the colony reproduces. So like you have a lot of bees, and then like about half of them will leave the hive and then go off into the great unknown somewhere, and then build a new house because the old hive is getting too crowded. And so so sometimes these swarms will kind of just gather up around in like maybe on your roof or somewhere. So if you find that it's a good idea not to just try to exterminate them, instead you can like call like there are beekeepers here who can help you kind of get the bees removed and then settle them into a nice new home for them to continue doing all of their pollination magic.
Also, if you want to know where you can find them, go to the Bee Guild's website. There's a list of all the like certified swarm keepers to do it. I'm on there. I don't know if Andrew is on there. I don't know. But anyways, call one of us, and someone who's like certified to come over will come and pick up the like bee swarm.
We almost called you last week. We had one in kindergarten, but then they left. We were gonna.
All right. So now I'm sure you guys have all been wondering what this mysterious board that just emerged is. And I wanted to talk a bit more about research. So I talked a bit about the world of you never saw that. I wanted to talk a bit about the world of science and how science can be applied into the real life beyond. This board is coming back to life, right? Little, but it is. And so basically what you can do is after you do a research project, if you do a research project on honeybees, on any other topic that you're interested in science, you can put it on a giant board like this. And you get to write a lot of fancy stuff and a lot of fancy diagrams, so you sound really smart when you really don't know what you're talking about. But, and then you can enter a kind of project like this at things like science competitions, and that allows you to win big awards for also doing things that you love to do. So I'm actually part of Harker's science research program. So when you guys all go to 8th grade at Harker, you'll have the opportunity to participate in something like this where you can do your own research project and then make something like this. And so it's basically you pick what you want to learn in science, and it's pretty cool. So I just wanted to share this with you guys.
Yeah, this will, the whole research thing that we're just talking about will definitely continue in high school, so if that's something you're interested in, we highly encourage you to check it out. Maybe you should do a project on bees, but I'm not supposed to be partial, so.
Yeah, and now we're gonna showcase some materials about beekeeping, but I'll leave this here if you guys want.
Right. So, there's bee suits there, but I actually brought my own, so I suppose I'll get changed into it. So, this kind of is what a bee suit looks like. You have this characteristic hat, and then kind of have the rest of the body. I think there's some that also like include your legs, so yeah, I'll just myself fuse into this. Generally, you want to leave as little exposed areas of your body as possible, just so you don't get stung. Like, I know there are beekeepers who are like really brave and like they don't wear bee suits at all, but I'm not one of them. So I will just keep all of my body covered. This is the wrong way. So yeah, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but it's basically if we have a hive, then there's normally this tool that you can use that will help separate the frames. Oh, is it here? It's here.
If you guys in the back want to go a little closer, you guys can move back. You can move back to the high.
So you can kind of use a tool like this. I guess I'll pass it around after I'm done kind of showing how to do it.
There's no bees in there.
No, there's nothing in there. So normally, when you leave the bees to do their thing for a while, they're going to glue the frames together. Just, but if you want to remove them, you can kind of take this, you can like kind of move it between the frames, and then kind of like just snuggle it out a bit, and then you can just lift it up and then check for whatever's on the hive. We already talked a bit about what you can expect to find on a hive. Like, for example, you can find worker bees. You normally want to check if the queen is still there, just to make sure that the hive is still making new young worker bees. Oh, that one has some wax.
Yeah. So you can see this frame has wax on it. These other types cells.
Yeah. It's a bit hard to see, but there's actually some pollen on here. If you guys want to pass this around, try to find where the pollen is. If anyone's close up, can you like kind of point to where the pollen is? Do you see? That's definitely some pollen, and I think just around here there should be some as well. I'll just pass it around. Right, but yeah, do you have a smoker?
It's a bit dirty. Like full of charcoal inside.
Should we use the smoke?
No, it's like
No, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, okay.
we don't use charcoal, it's just like charcoal.
We also sometimes might use a smoker if like we know that there's a hive that's particularly aggressive. continue passing it around. Or has everyone gotten it? Yeah. Okay. So basically, you just like fill the inside with some charcoal. You have it burn, and then if you press this, it will generate smoke if there's a fire inside. And basically what the smoke does is it kind of interrupts the bees' communication, so it's not really clear that you're a threat, which you normally aren't.
Also, reason why we like to use smokers is bees naturally, they're afraid of fire. I mean, I'd be afraid of fire too. So whenever there's smoke, they detect smoke, they have this natural response to just try to fly and flee, try to get as much stuff and leave the hive. So basically, we're just trying to trigger that and try to get them to flee this area wherever we're smoking.
Do they come back to the hive later?
Yes.
There's not enough smoke to make all the bees leave. It's just they're leaving the small area where we are trying to work on.
Yeah, so you can use this to blow some bees off of the frame if you want to get a closer look at what's on the frame.
This is just like beeswax that got melted down. Like some of that beeswax on the frame, you can scrape it off. You can melt it down to like other things, or you can turn them to candles or whatever you want to do with beeswax.
You can make a lot of cool things with beeswax. Actually, if you go to a locally sourced honey store, sometimes they'll be selling like beeswax candles, kind of thing as well.
Yeah, there's separate processes for like extracting honey from a hive, from like kind of refining all of this beeswax. So if you want to be a beekeeper, definitely go check them out. Yep.
Is each one of those individual frames a hive, or is the whole thing?
Great question. So this whole thing is the hive, and then each of these frames just where they can build or they can build beeswax on. The reason why we have these frames is just so like the bees just don't start randomly building everywhere. And even if you do have these frames, sometimes they might randomly build everywhere. That's one of the problems that I'm facing. So,
I guess you see like the cartoon, the traditional beehive shape is kind of like a really like circular thing hanging off of a tree, right? But the reason we use hives is so that we can keep everything in a straight and orderly place. So instead of the bees just building their hexagons wherever, we have them building the hexagons out of the hive because you can out of the frame, because you can see on the frame surface, the frame itself has these hexagons for the bees to build off of, and then the bees build.
Yeah, that makes it really clear to see what's on the hive and kind of like just find the queen, so that it's not like just nestled between two pieces of like wax that you can't get to.
See that box there? Just put that box.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions.
Because you could do a link on it. Is it just on other people? You can just.
All right, great. Feel free to